You saying that raising the minimum wage wouldn't make you richer reminded me of this kid I saw in the news earlier. He was like this young college Republican who was like studying to be an auto mechanic, and he was telling the lady about he doesn't want the minimum wage raised because he doesn't think someone right out of high school should make the same amount that he will after he studied this skill. But raising the minimum wage doesn't just put everyone on an even scale. It changes the market incredibly. I mean, everybody's wage would then go up because the minimum wage is no longer $7.25 an hour. Everybody benefits except, CEOs. But okay.
Right. Yeah, that's another angle that they never bring up that I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, because that's sort of the main, my favorite one is the version of that argument that shows, like what an E1, buck private in the Army or the other branches of the armed forces makes. I mean, they make enough money at that level that they qualify for welfare, and so people are like, why should a McDonald's employee make more than a hero defending freedom? And I go, well, of course, the issue is not that they're getting too much. It's that this guy's getting screwed too. And, the weird thing is in that whole minimum wage debate, no one talked about how, and this is something Bernie's moved away from in order to attack Hillary, but talking about how, for 40 years, prices have gone up, profits have gone up, productivity has gone up. I mean, the graphs are skyrocketing, but wages stagnant. And they should sort of sell it, instead of raising the minimum wage, they should sell it as, getting what that they should have, been owed, like what workers have been owed for so long. It shouldn't have to go from 7.25 to 12. It should have been 10 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the answer to we're talking about the minimum wage. This is the answer to people who say, like, oh my God, businesses aren't going to be able to afford it. They're going to close down. Look, the current minimum wage, if you adjust for inflation, is about where the minimum wage was in the late 1960s. I think Josh was talking about how prices rise and wages don't. So if you can't succeed in your business paying 1960s wages in 2016, that's a hell of a bargain in terms of labor. If you can't succeed under those conditions, then you've got a business problem, never mind minimum wage. The other thing Bernie doesn't do, and again, this is where I question who's prepping him and who's helping him manage his messaging, is that raising the minimum wage is not just putting money in an individual's pocket, of course. That money circulates. That money goes back into the community, particularly, again, people who live in defined neighborhoods, people who don't have a lot of social mobility. They spend their money where they live in their neighborhoods, and that dollar circulates around and around. It doesn't go to the Cayman Islands. When Donald Trump makes an extra buck, that dollar disappears somewhere. The people with the minimum wage, higher minimum wage, are going to pay more taxes. In addition, if people are able to feed themselves because they're earning a living wage, and $15 is really the bottom end of a living wage right now, then they're not going to need food benefits. They're not going to need all the social programs, which everyone says are expensive. They won't need all that stuff because they're going to be able to feed themselves. If you don't have to pay taxes for food stamps, then people don't have to use food stamps. This is a win-win for everybody. And while I was joking earlier that raising the minimum wage was not going to make me as a theoretical middle-class person any richer, I was actually being a little disingenuous, because in fact, when society does better, when people get off of government programs, when people have more money to spend, it in fact does benefit everyone. And Bernie doesn't make that point. I really need to hear him say that.
While we're on the topic, one of the biggest conservative myths has also been, for beyond, Peter's more deep approach, is just, jobs are going to flee if we raise the minimum wage. And they talk about it like it's hypothetical. And meanwhile, when you look at every single time that in recent years where the minimum wage has been raised, not only does the unemployment rate not go up, it goes down, because a lot of people are not willing to work for $7.25 an hour to do the shitty jobs. But 15, a lot more people are going to go to work, and especially when conservatives are going around saying how the labor force is smaller now than it was since Jimmy Carter. Well, here's how you fix it. You give people more incentive to go and actually get a job, because you're allowing them a livable minimum wage. All right, well, let's get back.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more quick point to add about the so-called disappearing jobs, the idea that businesses are going to pack up and go someplace where wages are cheaper. That is absolutely failing to understand the nature of the minimum wage economy. The vast majority of minimum wage jobs are in businesses that need to be where they need to be. Food service, retail, hotels, things like that. I mean, McDonald's doesn't put a restaurant someplace because they just thought it would be cool to have a restaurant there. They put it where they think they're going to sell burgers. And the same thing for Walmart, the same thing for a hotel. Just because wages get a little bit higher in podunk doesn't mean that those businesses are going to walk away. The proof, of course, is Washington State, where the minimum wage went up and the businesses simply did not leave. They couldn't. They have to be where they are. It's where their customers are. But,
they also had a lower unemployment rate than the entire country. Seattle had a 4% unemployment rate when the rest of the country had a 7% unemployment rate when they raised their minimum wage. Yeah, I just don't understand why these talking points haven't really permeated into the heads of a lot of the people that would benefit a lot from this particular thing.